What is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Darren with Darren the Dev, and you guys are tuning in for another Life After Coding Bootcamp live stream. I haven't done one of these in a really long time, so I'm super excited. Let me just check and make sure everything sounds good on YouTube from here. All right, cool. Looks like we got audio. So if you guys are brand new to the channel, if you're into tech, entrepreneurship, coding, startups, anything like that, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe. That's all we talk about here on this channel. And today we're going to be interviewing another YouTuber. Her name is Sarah, and we'll talk about it a little bit when she hops on, but she's a software developer based in Chicago. She's also a bootcamp graduate, and her videos actually got recommended to me, and I started watching some of her content, and I just thought that she was very honest. She gave a lot of like real advice, a lot of career advice too. And I don't know, guys, like during the pandemic, I'm just noticing that not even with just coding, I think a lot of people this year have decided to reassess what they're doing, what they're learning, you know, what they do for a living, their careers. So I think a lot of people are considering, you know, getting into just teaching themselves new things this year. Is a lot more open to learning new things this year. And I think a lot of people are looking into coding boot camps a lot more than they were, you know, previously. So because of that, I've been trying to drop a lot of content where I, you know, not only try to share my coding bootcamp experience, but also just give you guys real information about the coding bootcamp experience, you know, so you can make the best informed decision before you go. And again, that's the reason why I started this channel, because I wanted to put, you know, a lot of content out that I wish that there was out there when I was going to coding bootcamp. So talking to Sarah today, we're going to go through some questions that I have for her basically about her experience before boot camp. We're gonna talk about like her past jobs, education, everything, how she got into coding, and then her life as a professional software developer, and then after boot camp. So, you know, go ahead, guys, get comfortable. Thank you guys for joining. But for like the next hour or so, I'm just gonna be having a chat about coding boot camp. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you drop them in the chat. And I'll be sure to, you know, drag them on the screen, and Sarah and I can answer them as they come up. So let me just, so let me just go ahead and get my screen together, and then we'll go ahead and call Sarah and bring her in. All right. So I'll flip this over. Alright, and I'll go ahead and give Sarah a call on Skype. Hey, can you hear me?
Cool.
Hey,
yes. How's it going?
Awesome. Good. Hey, so I kind of gave like a really brief intro. I basically just let everybody know that you know, you're a bootcamp grad out in Chicago, and your videos were recommended to me like maybe a couple weeks ago, and so I started kind of just being. It was your first one was about, is coding bootcamp worth it? So from there, I kind of hopped in your channel and just kind of started binge watching. I thought like a lot of your stuff was like super relatable. So yeah, so I kind of just set that tone, but I wanted to leave some room for you to introduce yourself and let everybody kind of know who you are.
Yeah, sure. I'm Sarah. As was mentioned, I attended a coding boot camp about almost 2 years ago now is when I started. And now I work full time as a software developer. I work for a company that does, we do software solutions for various clients.
That's awesome. So I heard you graduated in 2018. So I did too in what was it, December? I started in October and finished in December. So like when did you finish, or when did you start and like finish everything in 2018?
I graduated in April of 2018.
Nice.
And I did a 6-month program that was part-time. So I worked during it. And I went to an internship after that. Sweet.
Okay. So you started like what, like fall-ish of 2017?
Yeah, September.
Okay. So, let me see. I'm gonna make sure I don't like jump ahead too much and add something that we already had lined up. But so how was the pacing of the 6 month Like, was it still every week, and was it every day, or was it maybe like a couple times a week?
I had class every Tuesday and Thursday night for
Okay.
like 4 hours from 6 to 10.
Okay.
And then I had class every Saturday from like 9 to 3, I think it was.
Gotcha.
So it was 3 times a week, and it was a little bit of a train ride away. So there was some late nights and stuff back and forth,
I
and
believe it. And if you're
early
going in the
mornings.
afternoon, it sounds like probably after work too, like a full day of work, then you're going to boot camp.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's definitely intense.
I believe it. Okay, cool. Um, so right now, so how long have you been a professional dev?
I have a total of a little over a year of experience professionally. I worked for a place for like 6, 7 months, and then that startup was liquidated. I was unemployed looking for a job for like 3 or 4 months, and then I've been with my current company for like 8 months now. So,
Okay, so you're in your second job.
yep.
Nice. Okay. And then what about like before boot camp, before getting into tech? Like what was life like before? Like what were you doing back then?
So prior to boot camp, I had zero programming experience. I had never done anything technical. If you had asked me, like, you told me, like, you're gonna be a developer someday, I would have thought that was crazy. I was never like the super, computer person or anything like that. Most of my work background was in restaurant industry. I did food service, so I pretty much I the summer before I went to boot camp, I did a little bit of like practice and stuff on my own, but other than
Yeah.
that, I was a complete noob
Yeah,
going into
yeah.
it.
So like what kind of sparked your interest? Like what took you from like where you were to being like I want to get into this, or I want to like look more into this tech and boot camp.
Yeah, so it's kind of random, but I actually got into it through my interest in cryptocurrency stuff.
Oh, sweet.
Um, I was kind of into like studying about like finance and business, and I had gotten into crypto. I was a relatively early investor in Bitcoin back in early 2017. And because of that, I started to just get more exposed to the tech community, and I was like, huh, this is kind of interesting. And I really just fell down the rabbit hole.
Okay, cool. That's not a bad way to get into it. So it sounds like there was because to be honest, I've never done any like blockchain development. I still really I like conceptually from a coding perspective. I don't really know a ton about blockchain. So I guess so. What was it about? I guess Bitcoin that kind of took you into coding.
I just became interested in the way it all worked. I
Yeah,
started learning about like blockchain and how it actually functions and what
yeah,
it is. And a lot of people in the space, there's a lot of overlap with programmers. And so I
yeah.
just got exposed to more of that
That's really
community. And
cool.
I started to be like, huh, this is kind of interesting. Like, what if I actually like this?
Yeah, that's really cool. So was your intention like did you get into it like I want to learn how to do blockchain? Like was that kind of like where you were at? Like you wanted to like kind of code your own stuff, or was it just more interest, like just hobby?
I think I kind of originally I felt like I would never be good enough at it to be able to do anything with blockchain. It was like I'll be lucky if I can figure out any of this coding stuff. Like I was kind of not super sure of myself at first. Um, but it was a cool full circle moment because my first job actually was with a crypto company, a startup in Chicago. So that was like I didn't do any actual on-chain programming, but I got to work with chain data and stuff, which was really cool.
Okay, that is awesome. So we actually have a comment that just came in for you. So Silver Fox asks, what does she code in?
So currently, I am working mostly in Angular and C Sharp. I've also worked in Node and React as well.
Sweet, you're the first C-sharp person I've talked to outside of Michigan. Usually, all my friends outside of
Really?
Michigan, they're all like React, Ruby, Go. Yeah, I felt like there wasn't as big of a demand for C because I hear a lot of Java and stuff here. If you're not like C-sharp, but it's rare I run into people who do .NET too. So that's really awesome. Um, okay, okay, so we touched on that. So, how about school? Like back when you were doing your old job and everything, were you a student as well during that time?
Like during my boot camp.
No, before, like prior to boot camp? Had you already
Oh,
like gone to college and
so I did 1 semester of college, and that was it. I pretty much ran out of money after that point for school and
yeah?
had to drop out.
Mm-hmm.
So I to this day I don't have any degree or anything like that. And when I was in school, it was not tech related. I was majoring in
Same.
communication. So
Yep. That's so crazy. I was too in Tennessee. That's wild.
really,
Yeah. I studied corporate communications at a school called Austin P. It's like in the like right outside Kentucky. But yeah, totally unrelated. Like had no idea I would get into coding at all. She says best Angular tutorial. I'm learning Angular too. Awesome. That's cool. Okay, so untraditional all the way. Like no, like you weren't studying this in school prior. Like you weren't dabbling with it really. It's just like got into Bitcoin and everything, and then it kind of just went from there. And then you ended up going to boot camp. So
hmm
that's cool. How did you find out about boot camp? Or did you just like
so
literally just do your own research and decide where you wanted to go?
yeah, it was. I started looking into different ways to learn programming. I was kind of like exploring the option of maybe attempting to go to community college and get like an associate's degree or something like that that was like more affordable, that I could do while I was still working at the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely respect people who can be self-taught, but I knew that like I needed to like go in somewhere and learn it, or I was gonna fall
Yep.
off the wagon and not go fast enough.
Yep. That was me with JavaScript before boot camp. 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was such a struggle. 100%. I can agree with that all the way. I felt like the structure, like for me, is really hard when like Stack Overflow is one thing, but I think before you start coding kind of like frequently, it's hard to even get questions answered on Stack Overflow. Like the answers don't always make sense. So I think having an instructor or like another classmate I could ask those questions to that I felt like were kind of dumb questions, but at least somebody can explain it to me or try to ask me like what I was confused about. So yeah, I
Oh,
agree.
for
The
sure.
classroom format was big for me too.
Yeah, I feel like now I'm at a point where I can teach myself things a little bit better and I can read on Stack Overflow, but definitely
Exactly.
at the beginning, I would have been really lost, I
Yep.
think.
Yep. Okay, so let's kind of dig into the boot camp a little bit. So what exactly? So for example, mine was called it was just called Java Boot Camp. So we did like you did a little front end. It was mainly like Bootstrap. They didn't really teach us anything front. They were just kind of the basis of how to like make a front end, but it was mainly all Java. So what was your boot camp called, or like what was the curriculum focused on?
It was a full stack web development program.
Okay.
And so we pretty much, it's focused in like the front end stuff is focused in JavaScript and kind of they touch on React and like some of that framework stuff.
Okay.
And they go over like, I think our back end was mostly all Node too. We had like one
No.
day of Python that was like pointless because there was
Okay.
not time to like learn it.
There's always something like that. I feel like there's always like a few topics that you barely touch on, like you fly through it. Because for me, it was APIs. We spent like an hour or two on APIs, and it was like, okay, you know APIs now. I was like, do I? I was like,
Do
okay.
yeah. And we talked about like the database stuff, so like SQL and
Mhm.
MongoDB.
Okay.
So it was basically just like building full stack web apps, like creating the front end, connecting it to a database,
Mhm.
working with an outside API. So yeah, web apps
Mhm.
basically what I was focused
So
on.
you started in Node. Node was your first server side language, and then you moved to .NET.
Yeah, so since coming to this job, I have started learning .NET.
.NET.
At my previous job, our backend was Node as well. There was also some Go, but I wasn't really involved with that part. But coming on to this job, a lot of our projects use a .NET backend, and so I have they were like, well, take a look at this
Here you
and like
go.
see what you can do.
Jumped
So
in. Have a good
I've
time.
been diving in and learning that in
Yep.
recent months, which has been cool.
So yeah, can you kind of share how that experience has been a little bit for some people? Because I get the question all the time. Like, so you took a Java bootcamp for 3 months and then got hired as a C# .NET developer, and it's like, and I haven't touched Java since then. So really, since like December 2018 might have been like the last time I used Java. So it was like, so people ask me all the time, like, how was that? Like, was it difficult? And I think because Java and C# are so similar, it was a much more smooth transition. But like Node to C# might be way more drastic. So like, can you kind of talk about how that was for you, like the transition?
Yeah, I think I've been really surprised by how much easier it is to learn a new programming language once you already know one. Like the learning curve of like learning JavaScript for the first time, I thought it was going to be like that all over again with all the new stuff that I learned, but it's been so much easier, especially with I also had to learn Angular for this job, and I came out of my boot camp knowing React and doing that in my previous job. And that, like, I was able to switch over really quickly because it's so similar, just front-end frameworks, and it's really interesting how they build. The C# has been a little bit slower for me because I tend to do most of my work on the front end, so the back-end piece takes me a little bit longer. But in that, C# is a lot, I feel like, is a lot different, more so than, like, the difference between React and Angular. Between C# and Node. So it's definitely been an adjustment, but I feel like it's helped expose me to a whole kind of other corner of programming that I didn't know much about.
100%. Okay, so going back, if you can remember, like that very first week of boot camp, right? Can you kind of like walk us through that experience, like going in with? So it sounds like you had done a little bit of coding leading up to boot camp to get ready, and then when you got there, how was that first week?
I think the first week, it wasn't too bad. It was mostly like clone repository for the first time and like, here's your homework. Let's learn a bootstrap layout. It was like pretty simple stuff. And I feel like that kind of gave me confidence going forward because I was like, I went into it really not knowing if I could do it. I was like, there's a chance what if I can't even do this? And so like getting through like that first assignment, I was like, okay, like here we go.
Exactly. Yo, I agree 100%. My thing was regex. So we got into regex the second week, and I remember coming home. We had an assignment. It was to write a regex that like validated something, and I just didn't know. I was out. I was about to quit. I had that moment. Remember I was calling people like, I don't know, what do you think? I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I made the right decision, blah blah. So yeah, I feel like there's always those moments where you wonder like, did I make the right decision? Is this gonna be the right thing? Do I know what I'm doing? But you're right. Those confidence boosters are really big throughout the boot camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? So okay, so the first week wasn't too bad then. It sounds like that first week was more like a confidence boost.
Yeah, mostly. I think the toughest part of the boot camp for me was the second half.
Okay.
We had like a little kind of halfway point break because it was right over the holiday. It like aligned with the school semesters.
Okay.
And coming back from that break and getting back into it, that second half, it was a lot of the back end stuff, and that second half was definitely challenging.
Got it. Okay. So how was it broken up? Since mine was 10 weeks, and so at week 4 we did a midterm, but it was just a console application, and then week 8 we started our final project, which is like a full blown web app, and you have to have like a team of 4, at least 3, I think. So how did they set up the projects or the curriculum over the course of 6 months for you guys?
We started with kind of most basic like front end stuff for the first few weeks, and there was like a group project towards the end of the first half where we built I think what my group did was basically just a pet products page where we like pulled from the Amazon API and like display some products. And then the second half we had 2 more group projects, and they were more full stack, like you had to do full CRUD operations and everything in your application.
Wow.
So it was like that's where they kind of got into like more of the database stuff, and the pace like definitely really picked up to the end, and then the very end was React for a couple weeks.
So that's quite a few projects, right? So that's like maybe 3 or 4.
It was 3, yeah.
Okay, that's really good. Sounds like you guys got like a lot of experience, like working with other people, other developers on the same projects?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yep. And that's definitely a big thing to learn how to do. Even just getting used to like Git workflows and stuff. It's all a challenge at first.
Definitely. So speaking of that, I know you had talked about like a little bit about doing some stuff before boot camp, but like what was your regimen for like preparing to go to coding boot camp? Like what were you doing on the, daily or kind of like regular basis to kind of get ready?
So before I applied to coding bootcamp, I started out with Codecademy
Okay.
for my very first coding that I ever did, and I just did a little bit of like console log type stuff
Mhm.
on Codecademy to
Mhm.
get into it, and then
Mhm.
my bootcamp had some summer pre-work, so I did that over the like 4 weeks leading up to when I started, and that was just kind of see if you can like implement this assignment to like create a really basic HTML page in the browser and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So
Mhm.
I basically just did the pre-work, and I honestly didn't really know what to study at
Right.
that point.
Right.
So
Right.
I didn't even really
Me
know how
too.
to prepare.
Me
But
too. 100%. Because um, like I said, I played around with Java. Well, okay, I'm kind of like we had a so your pre-work was your admission based on your pre-work at all, or was it just pre-work to help you study? Because ours was like here's the pre-work, but they were also admitting and like disqualifying people based on the pre-work answers and stuff too. So was like that, or was it just to help you get ready?
no, it was for admission. Like we had like a couple tests that we had to do, like logic-based tests and stuff that we had to pass.
Okay.
But then the pre-work was just mainly like getting ready for the course.
Okay. Got you. Got you. Um. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so during boot camp, so jobs are always a big question, and it's a big focus. I think that's the reason why a lot of us go to coding boot camp, right? Is because you want to transition into a new career. So, how was that during your time at boot camp? Like, how was your job searching process, or like applying? Were you applying while you were in boot camp? How'd you know when you were ready? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So one thing I did do, as I was going through the boot camp, I took a look at my resume and I was like, I have basically nothing on my resume that will help me get a job in this. So what can I do about that while I'm still in the boot camp so that when I finish, I at least have something to put on there.
Nice.
So I just started looking around, like not even at like developer positions, but just at anything like
Yeah.
sort of tech related that I could
Mm-hmm.
at least, I was like, even if it's like some kind of a tech support in like retail at Best Buy or something,
Yeah.
like, and there ended up being, there's a company in Chicago called Codeverse where it teaches kids like basics of computer programming and
Yeah,
like
I think I've seen Codeburst before actually. Let me see.
it's cute. And
Yeah,
they
I've heard of
were
that.
just opening some locations, and I applied and was like, "Yeah, I'm a bootcamp student." Like, and they were like, "Perfect! Like, that's
Cool.
exactly what." So I did that while I was still in boot camp, in addition to my restaurant job on
That's
mornings.
cool.
So
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like super booked, but I was like, at least now I've done like, oh, I've done a job teaching kids to code. Like, at least it's something.
Exactly.
And then I was fortunate in that during my boot camp, I ended up getting connected with someone who was a startup CEO and had internships available for the summer, and he ended up offering me one partway through.
Nice.
So I already knew that I was going to have an internship to go to when I finished, so I didn't do like a whole lot of other applying during the boot camp,
Mm-hmm.
which was really lucky.
So wow, so that's really big. So it sounds like your network kind of led you to that first opportunity.
Yeah, basically, it was honestly because I started tweeting about programming stuff. I got kind of in the whole developer community on Twitter, and I was like, I'm gonna start tweeting about my coding bootcamp experience, and I like put that I was a student at the Northwestern bootcamp in my bio,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow like one of my tweets came up on the timeline of a guy in Chicago who owned a company, and he was also a like adjunct professor at Northwestern. And he
Oh
was like,
wow.
"Oh, you're in the boot camp," and I like reached out to him, and I was like, "Hey, I'd love to like grab coffee sometime and like
That's really
talk."
cool.
programs at Northwestern, and he was like, yeah, and we met up, and he was like, I actually have like some internships at my company, and it's a crypto company, and I was like, yes.
So did you even fill like did you fill out an application? It sounds like this all went down like from Twitter to just like grabbing a coffee to.
Yeah, pretty much. I
That's
went
cool.
in and like I sent them my portfolio and like went in and met with some of the team and stuff like that before I started for like an interview. But
That's really cool.
yeah, it was pretty nice.
That's really cool. I try to be honest about stressing like how important network is. Because even my second job now was um, so I got referred to my job through like a good friend that we met in coding bootcamp, and then we both went to our first job together. But he ended up leaving our first job before I did and coming to our current job, and then like basically bringing me over to the current job. So like I always try to stress like how important network is, because you're right. Like I don't know, at least for me, I know I did like 47 or 48 job applications, and I think out of there I maybe got like 11. I heard back from maybe like 11 and interview with a few, and it all just like winds down, but you put so much effort into the application process and stuff. And like you said, if you don't have a degree or like a ton of experience, I'm guessing that we probably get filtered out a lot. Like us bootcamp grads or people that don't have a ton of experience probably get filtered out very quickly. So
Yeah.
knowing people ends up being the best way for sure, getting that first opportunity. So that's a really good
Oh
story.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I still have one or two people from my boot camp that like we send each other like job opportunities and stuff when we hear things that come up,
That's
or
really
like,
cool.
hey, my company's hiring, and like it's honestly like the easiest way to get like an interview with the right people.
Yeah. So you're still cool with people from boot camp?
Yeah, a couple of them.
That's cool.
We still talk, which is it's nice to have that network.
Did you guys have like career counselors or anything, or people that helped you kind of navigate the job hunting process at the bootcamp?
They did offer career services. I honestly didn't really use it much, mainly because like I already knew where I wanted to go when I got out of the boot camp. I don't really know if it was like one of those things that's super helpful or something that they just kind of have to like check the box that they have.
Did they have it? Got you. Yeah, because that was gonna be my question. Was like, did you deal with them at all? Were they helpful? But all right, let's see. So we touched on the final project, but yeah, how was that? Like that very last big web application with you're like working with other people. So how was that experience? Because I know that everyone learns at different speeds and different things in the boot camp. So some people have better strengths and weaknesses than others in a group. So that final project is usually a really interesting experience of trying to figure out like where does everybody contribute, like what can they do, like what do they want to do, so like how was that final project experience for you?
I think so. For that one, I think we did a music review app, and it had to have so you had to be able to like post, make blog posts and comments and stuff, and you had to be able to log in as different users. We had to have authentication, and that first time of ever doing an off piece of a project, that was like painful, and it took us down to the wire, and it definitely challenged everyone's ability to work as a group, because it's really easy for a specific person or people to get stuck with the majority of the work, especially when you're starting out and you don't know how to divide up a project. Like, oh, this sounds easy, like you can do this part, and then that turns out to be like and that definitely kind of happens sometimes. So I feel like that was a big learning experience for sure.
For sure. Did you have any like merge conflicts? Did you guys like get into anything like that? You remember?
Oh yeah, we had merge conflicts. We had like the application didn't like even work until we like did the final push like 10 minutes before the presentation.
Yep. So we used we made a app where you put in like an address. We used Yelp's API. You put in an address, and it would give you like an arbitrary 1 through 5 score of like how healthy your neighborhood is based on how close you are to like grocery stores and like gyms or whatever. We were so excited when we got it working. It was really basic, but the day of our demo, or technically night before, it was like the night before our official graduation and demo was a family night. So your whole family and friends would come. But the second day was for just straight employers. So that first night at like family and friends demo, the Yelp API just broke. So everybody came to like see our app, and it was just all error messages. Like everybody just like we swear it works. It's Yelp, it's not us.
That sucks.
Okay, and so how long was it from when you graduated to like when you started that first opportunity that you got at your first job?
I think it was like a few weeks, like a month maybe, before I had my first day as an intern. But in between there, as soon as I graduated, I also applied to go back as a TA for the boot camp that I just graduated
Nice.
from.
Yep.
Because I was like, just in case this internship falls through, like I want to quit the restaurant, so at least I can do this.
There you go.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
went
the
back
hustle.
and TA'd the boot camp, like 6 days after I graduated. I was like, now I'm teaching the class.
Nice. But that honestly, I think the big thing is like it sounds like you were really hustling, like just creating opportunities. Like it's like, hey, I'm gonna try to get some experience no matter what it is in the meantime, like while I'm doing this, and I'm gonna like I think all those things really show initiative and drive. And yeah, right, it's just about getting some type of opportunity. Like my other good friend, she took an internship as well, like an unpaid internship, and just went and got a ton of experience from these guys who basically was just like, hey, we're not going to teach you things, like you're going to have to figure it out, like jump in, ask questions. And yeah, that ended up being a big part of her getting her, her first professional opportunity too. So creating those opportunities and just putting yourself out there to get whatever experience you can, I think is really huge in the job hunt process.
Yeah, I often tell people that are going to boot camp, like if you're able to, and obviously not everyone is in a position where they can, but if you're able to look at just internship opportunities that are like maybe a little bit lower pay, sometimes that can be like an easier way to break in, I feel like, than just going straight for like, I'm gonna look for like a full-time junior role. Like sometimes it's like you can get some internship opportunities and get some experience that might make it easier to get to the next step.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree 100%, especially too because I feel like the job climate that we graduated in it was so much different than kind of where we are right now too. So you're right. I think being open to almost any sort of like opportunities to get that professional experience is probably really good. Okay, so like when I was in boot camp, we did mock interviews, like mock technical interviews, and it wasn't anything like crazy hard, but it was just they wouldn't ask you like really crazy algorithms, but they would just get you into the routine of like actually talking through your code and like on a whiteboard and stuff. So I guess it's kind of like two-part question. One, I guess, did your boot camp kind of prep you for the interviewing experience, the technical interviewing experience, and then second, what was your technical interview experience like for your jobs?
So my boot camp had the option with career services that you could do mock interviews, and I never did them, which I probably should have. Instead, my first whiteboarding interview was a real life interview after I had left my first job, and I never felt so unprepared in my life. I went into it thinking like, whatever, like I'll just get through it, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I was just standing there. It was like a worst nightmare situation.
Doesn't it suck?
Like standing there with a marker, like I literally have no idea, right? And so after that, I realized like, oh, this is something that it was something I could do too. It was like looping through some stuff, whatever. And I just the way of like processing it and
it's
like
all
actually
different.
Writing it out,
it's
like,
way
without
different.
looking at anything else, it was so different. And so after that, I started writing out code by hand in my notebooks, just to kind of get used to like the way it feels in your brain putting it on paper versus like coding it out in a project. And that was definitely something I should have started doing like from the beginning. I didn't even realize.
No, it's not just you, because even with the mock like interview experience, I have the fear of sounding like really dumb, right? So it's like I'll be on the whiteboard and I'll be thinking something, but I won't say it. Like I won't say it until I feel like sure that that's what I want to say or that's what I want to do. But then I end up just standing there with the white, like the marker in my hand. They're like, are you good? Like, what are you, like, are you? I'm like, yeah, no worries, we're good. But like, I just haven't said anything, and I realized that was something I've really had to work on, is like expressing myself and what I'm thinking, where I'm at, and because I don't. What I found is that I don't think the interviewers usually want you to fail. Like they don't want to see somebody bomb, because it sucks for both of you, right? Like it's really uncomfortable for them to watch you fail. It's uncomfortable for you to fail, because I bombed out really hard where it was awkward for me and the interviewer. Where it was just like, I'm just gonna stop you here. So yeah. That was my thing with the mock technical or just technical interviews, is practicing expressing your thoughts and communicating, because if they know where you are or what you're thinking, they can kind of give you hints or maybe help you through it, and it's not like such a all or nothing thing. Like you can make mistakes, you can talk through stuff, but yeah, that was my big thing, was just sitting there and just holding the marker. So since you graduated, what's been your biggest like realization about software development, tech, coding, since you've been in the industry?
I feel like there's been so many things. I think a big one was realizing how much easier it is to learn new languages when you know one, and just seeing how much better you get and how much more you start to think of things like a developer, and it's just something that you literally just takes time to get there. And it's really cool to like look back at my previous progress and like see how far I am in basically a year's worth of time. And there's so many little things. Like I feel like even I was always the person that was like, oh, I would never need like a bunch of monitors. It's overkill. I always did everything on the laptop, and now I'm like, the more the merrier, and I've got like a full setup.
You can never go back once you have it. How many monitors do you use?
Currently I have like 3 going.
Yep.
At any given time.
Same. And it's so hard. It's so hard to go back. I feel like I'm spoiled now. If I don't have at least 2 monitors, it's so annoying. I feel like I can't do as much. Yeah. What about if you could go back and talk to Sarah before bootcamp? What would you be telling her? Like, what advice would you give yourself before you went?
I think I would just give myself even more confidence. Like I would be like, you can actually do this. And it's so much about your mindset, which was something I didn't realize. But like there were people in my boot camp who on paper they could have been better programmers than me, but they didn't have a good attitude towards it, and they got discouraged and frustrated, and it ended up preventing them from being able to get better. And the key is really just to believe that you can do it, that eventually you're going to get there, and to enjoy what you're learning about. And I think I would just go back and tell myself, like, just go into this with so much confidence. And honestly, like being a TA and coming from the other side of it, you see like how low the bar is sometimes. Like there's definitely people that it's like, you're gonna be okay. Like you're really willing to put in the work. Like you can do it.
That's good. Okay, so quick sidebar. We have another question for you. So is it AO? AO says thoughts on free code camp.
Free code camp, I think, is great too. Free code camp, Code Academy, those are both sites that I've used for practice. And I also use Udemy courses a lot. I'll just go buy like a $10 course. I do that all the time, just for stuff I'm doing at work. Like, I'm gonna do a TypeScript course now and just like really get better at that. Just to really perfect particular skills. But yeah, I like free code camp. Yep.
I definitely did free code camp as well too. And I know I haven't used it since like 2016. So I know they've added a ton of stuff since then, because I get emails sometimes. They've got stuff on like GraphQL now. Like it's way more robust than it used to be. So I definitely think I would also say free code camp is a great resource. So Um, but yeah, on the confidence piece though, about going back to boot camp, I definitely agree because my issue was comparing myself to other people. It's like what you were saying. I felt like there were people. For example, I had a classmate who he already spoke like multiple languages, so I feel like maybe his mind could like conceptualize like programming better, like concepts better. And he just seemed like he was just picking everything up. And I was like, dude, have you like done this before? He's like, oh no, but I speak Spanish and blah blah. I'm like, ah. So I started getting really discouraged. Like, oh dude, I don't know. But again, like you said, I think you have those moments that click. Like certain things click for people at different moments. Everybody learns differently. Everybody learns at their own pace. That's why you can't be afraid to ask your own questions and to make mistakes. Because like there's no set period of time that you should get certain things or understand certain things. Like it all comes when it comes for everybody. So I agree. Confidence is everything because if you compare yourself to other people or whatever or just like you said, don't have a good approach or attitude about it, like the imposter syndrome will kill you or like the dropout or I want to quit or I can't do this mentality is very easy to fall into. So definitely agree with that one. So what about tips for anybody who might be watching who's considering like going to coding bootcamp or just wants to transition into tech, software development, and just coding in general?
I think I would say if you're looking into boot camps, really, really do your research because I know there's so many boot camps out there that are basically just a scam at this point. They seem to be popping up everywhere. So really make sure it's a good investment. Some of them like run really expensive too. So really make sure that you know who I've recently run across a boot camp where the instructor was actually a student, a computer science student, and they were teaching the course. So like you want to make sure that like, the instructors are like people with experience and, just as much research as you can do so that you can, make a good investment.
Exactly.
People always ask me like recommend a particular boot camp and it's like honestly everyone's gonna have a different experience at any given boot camp. So you really just have to look into it yourself and Seriously. Like see what you're vibing with.
Is it possible for a okay, so all right, so on a not to cut you off, we'll come right back to that. But it's okay, so AO had a follow-up question. So we kind of touched on this earlier, AO. So when the stream is over, you can probably check Sarah's answer before, but I'll ask and maybe she can briefly recap it for you. She said, so he says, what were you guys doing before tech? And he said, is it possible for a warehouse worker to transition into tech via free code camp? He said, I did pass a coding class at my community college with an A.
Nice. Yeah. My background prior to coding bootcamp, I didn't have any technical experience or education, and my resume was pretty much all food service work. So, yeah, it's definitely possible. I know of people who are fully self-taught and are able to get jobs in software development just using free online resources pretty much. So it can be done. It definitely would take a ton of like discipline, self-discipline, and a ton of work for sure to be able to spend the time to work through it all yourself. But yeah, it's definitely possible to make the career switch without prior experience.
Yeah, and AO's as a quick reference. So I was working on a pharmacy tech beforehand, and I played football in college. I went to school for a year, but like we had said, it was like totally untech related. It was communications, and then in 2018, the fall, is when I went to boot camp, and kind of the rest was history from there. So I definitely also think that free code camp, like Sarah said, if you spend enough time on it, I definitely think you can learn what you need to. I haven't looked at the curriculum recently in the last few years, so but I don't doubt at all that they have pretty much everything you need to get started with at least web development for sure. I know. So okay, so back to tips for prepping. So research, I would 100% agree. because there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff now that I don't know. I don't want to call it scams because I haven't been to them, but I feel like they like, have you heard of Trilogy? By any means, like Trilogy and Hacker U, I think, are the two that I've heard of recently that are like, I don't know if they partner with schools or universities or something like that, but I know there's just a lot of different business models for coding boot camps. And what's your thoughts on paying for coding boot camp?
So I think you shouldn't pay as much as you would pay to go to college. Like if you could get a degree for the cost, then just go get the degree. Like that seems silly to me.
Yeah.
My boot camp was definitely expensive. It was a $10,000 boot camp.
Okay.
But I was able to. It was offered through a school, so I was able to get a student loan for it, which was really nice because a lot of the programs they don't offer that option. You literally have to get a personal loan to cover the cost.
Yeah.
And I really wanted something that had like the better interest rate and better payments of a student loan. Mm-hmm. So that was a big factor in choosing that boot camp and choosing to go through a school's program. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I feel like if you're paying what you could pay to get a bachelor's degree in computer science, then most of the time, you're probably better off taking the extra time and like getting the degree for that level of investment.
Yeah, that's great feedback too. Like you mentioned earlier, with Udemy for like 10 to like an expensive Udemy course might be like 20 to $50 would be considered expensive, and you could get so much content on so many languages, web development, full stack, backend development, like pretty much anything that you want. You could go spend a fraction of what you spend on a full coding bootcamp and kind of go take buy a lot of courses too. So yeah, I definitely think that's like my only knock really on coding bootcamp sometimes is the prices. I know there's things like Lambda School where people have talked about going there, and I don't think they charge you until you graduate and get a job, like a salary job as a developer, and then they take like some percentage of your salary for however long until you pay it back. But I haven't been to a boot camp like that, obviously. But I recommend it to people that I would look into something like that, because anything beats the huge like ridiculous cost. Because even though it's good, I do think there's like better ways and more affordable ways to do it sometimes. Okay, so one more question from the chat, and then I have one more question for the live stream, and then I think we can wrap it up. Let everybody know where to find you on YouTube. So Pardeep says, how old were you guys when you started your boot camp?
I was, how old was I in 2018 or 2017 when I started? I have to do the math. I think I was 21.
Yep, I
just turned 21.
Yeah, I was 23. Yeah, 23. And okay, so going forward, so we covered a lot of ground all the way from like before you went to coding boot camp all the way now to like through your second job in the industry. And we've also kind of talked about how all those things that you might do at a job, or like there's all those different things that you can learn in tech, front end, back end, database, DevOps, like all these stuff is like different job roles and careers and everything. So there's like so many different angles now that you're in tech that you could take your coding skills, your technical skills. So going forward, like what are your career plans, like next steps? Do you want to get like a certain job title? Do you want to get, a certain certification, or like what's your next steps?
I think I just want to keep moving up as a programmer and keep getting better. And I think I want to stay. Originally starting out, they were kind of like, okay, there's kind of like two trajectories. You kind of go like more the project management route, or you could go like the engineer route. And I think I was like, I don't know, but I think I want to stick with full engineer side of things, and hopefully just become a senior level someday. And I definitely want to be in a position where I can help out junior developers and other people getting started where I was or where I am now even.
Definitely,
which is one reason why I started my channel, because I was like, I want to try to help out other people and give them some of that confidence that I needed when I was starting out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I'm working on my AWS certification stuff right now, so I definitely want to like collect more of that. I've been doing a course on cybersecurity
Nice.
and web security, so I kind of want to dabble more into that side of things too.
Nice.
Just a good skill to have. But yeah,
That's
I
cool.
think just keep on going.
Yeah, that's cool. So speaking, that was a perfect segue into your channel. So Sarah's channel is actually up right now, guys, on the screen. So I put Sarah A coding is like what I actually type in it into YouTube to get your channel specifically, just because like if I type in Sarah A, I get like a flood of channels. So Sarah A coding, guys, the first channel that pops up is gonna have all her videos and everything. So make sure you guys go there, like her videos, binge watch them, subscribe to her channel. She gives a ton of good information like this away. So Sarah, yeah, I really appreciate you stopping by on the channel and sharing all this with everybody here. I think it's gonna be a lot of people who find valuable stuff like based on these comments and everything. So is there anything you want to like say, wrapping, anything you want to shout out or anything you want to promote?
I think thanks so much for having me on. I love doing stuff like this, so definitely we can collab anytime.
Sure.
And yeah, to everyone watching, thanks for watching. Feel free to check out my stuff and subscribe to Darian for sure. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Sounds good. So yeah, I'll definitely be sure to keep in touch, Sarah. I appreciate you for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you.
For sure. Talk soon. Bye.
See ya.